Why, hello. I didn't see you there. Today we are going to be learning about the human anatomy. And I've got with me Gareth. Gareth, get ready for me to blow your mind. Oh, it looks like that already happened. Today, without further ado, we are going to learn the parts of the human skeleton. Are you with me? Good. Now, if you look in the comments down below, you will see an attachment, and that is this beautiful diagram here. And let's see if you can figure out all the parts based on the names on the back. So, let's start at the top. It's a very good place to begin. Now, this whole thing, you're like, that's the skull, Dave. And you're not wrong, but you're wrong, because there's more detail to it. Okay? This top part is actually a whole separate bone. And this thing, as you can see, that I wasn't supposed to, it comes off. Now, if this ever happened to you in real life, it would be super painful. Your jaw would be dislocated. Did you know that some animals can actually dislocate their jaws so that they can get more food in there? I can't do that. If I could have dislocated my jaw to get more food in there, I would have, because I like food. But let's talk about what these parts are called. You might be looking at this sheet and you're like a good student and you're working on it and you're like, what do I call this thing? And you're poring over the word bank on the other side. You know what? I invested in a word bank and got terrible returns. So just bear that in mind. But invest your brain in this word bank. Let's get back on the topic. So you're going to look and you're going to say, Dave, I thought this was called the cranium. It is, but specifically this here is the frontal lobe, and you don't get to see it on this skeleton, but if you actually look at the top, and you can't really see, I'll zoom in the edit, but right along here you can see this is called sutures, and it looks like stitching, and actually it is where your brain stitches together, because actually a little baby, oh, this is Gareth, and he's British. Did I mention he was Gareth? Hello, Gareth. And a little baby has a soft spot, right? Because our skull doesn't fully form when we're in the womb. And the reason why is this. We have these giant brains that have proven good from an evolutionary standpoint, but bad from the standpoint of how do you push that bowling ball out of the body? And one of the strategies involves babies having way more bones than fully adult people, so they're much more flexible. You can squish them up in different ways. And also, their skull is not fully formed, so it can actually form into a cone. Like it squishes, it's flexible. And that's because you have a little hole there. And that's what the soft spot is. It's actually a hole in your skull. And so no, you don't press on the soft spot to see what's going to happen. That's brain damage. What are you, monster, if you ever thought of doing that? But I don't think you ever thought of doing that. I'm not going to lie. You kind of feel the soft spot and you think you're worried that you're hurting the baby. Don't touch the soft spot. Okay, let's move on to a biblical story. And I have a few people here who can maybe nod at me if I'm getting this right. This here is a jawbone, all right? And a jawbone is a pretty big thing. Now imagine a donkey's jawbone. That'd be pretty gigantic, wouldn't it? So imagine there's this dude named Samson, and he was super strong, and he wanted to slay a bunch of people. Maybe he would do it with the jawbone of an ass. And that was a story that always made me snicker as a kid when I heard it. But ass means donkey, so I'm not going to beep it out. And I think this is called the mandible. I'm looking for assurance off to the side here. The mandible, and definitely when I was a kid, actually, I don't know, did you ever hear it as the mandible of an ass? Yeah, so that's how I first heard that story, and I remember being completely confused as to where the mandible was in my ass. And it's because it's not there. It's your jawbone. Okay, let's move down. We've got our cranium. Frontal lobe, we've got our jawbone. Now let's get into the spine. Boom. Now, a lot of people say that we are vertebrates because we have a spinal cord. And the spinal cord is this yellow stuff in here. It's all these nerves that emanate out from the spine. No, we're vertebrates because we have vertebra. That's the plural. Vertebra is like, yo, vertebra. That'll be my nickname for my bras out there. Bro, vertebra. Okay, back onto the topic here. Through the middle of the vertebrae is this nerve cord, which is pretty delicate. The vertebrae are bones that protect it. And we have 3 different kinds. So what are the parts of our spine? We have, to start with, the cervical spine, which is the neck. So these are the cervical vertebrae, and I'm not going to count them for you because I'm going to get it wrong, but I'm going to tell you at the very top is called the atlas, because Atlas held up the world, and Atlas holds up your world, your brain, your dome, your globe. And now we're going to move down here into the thoracic region, okay? And the thoracic region, anything that's got a rib attached to it is thoracic, okay? And this area here is the thoracic cavity, which we call also the rib cage. And I always have a great question for people. Why the heck do we have a rib cage? Anyone? Bueller. I'll tell you why, because no one wants it, because I told them not to answer. Because you have a rib cage, because it protects the stuff that's inside. Now what's inside here is a beating heart. Boom, 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 boom. Lungs that need to maintain a level of filledness with air. That's a scientific term, filledness with air. But the lungs need to stay inflated. The heart needs to keep beating. We don't want to mess with this stuff. So what do we have? We have protection around it. Okay? Now, we don't need to protect all our internal organs. Further to that, we don't want to protect all our internal organs like that. What do we have down here? We have the, what scientists like to call the guts. Now, imagine you're a predator, okay? Imagine you're a lion, and you're out in the wild, and you're like, I'm hungry. What's the very first part they eat? The guts. And I was going to make another video, but I was afraid it would get me banned from YouTube, because I did find a pigeon that had been eaten by a hawk. And what do? They eat the guts first and literally leave the rest of the body behind. Because not only is this super nutritious, the liver, the stomach, the intestines, but let's say you're a meat eater and you don't eat any vegetables. You are eating vegetables because you're eating what the gazelle ate. You're eating what that vegetarian animal ate. So they dive into the stomach first. And not only that, you have the bonus, it's already pre-digested for you. Sounds disgusting, tastes also disgusting. It's not great. But well, you know, for them it tastes good. Because I bet they love it. I bet they love it. I bet they're like, man, that stomach was so good. It was filled with digested stuff. And then when you got down to the poopy part, oh man. It was gross. Okay, let me get back to the spine. So here we go. We've got our cervix. We've got this, our lumbar, our thoracic region, cervix, neck, thoracic, rib cagey, lumbar. And how do we remember this? We have lumbar supports, right? We have a lumbar support, and whether it's in our car or in our chairs or different things like that, and it's supporting your lower back. Also, if we look in here, you can see the delicate C curve. This whole area in here is actually prone to a lot of tension. Look at this curve. Are we looking? So there can be a lot of damage that can happen in here. There's going to be a lot of damage that can happen in here. And so as the lower back, often the worst, like most likely area where you're going to have back problems. Although here's the crazy thing. I actually have back problems in my upper back, and it would always drive me crazy because I would go in and the physiotherapist would always be like, no, your upper back is never hurt. It's your lower back that's going to be the problem. And I'd be like, no. You can also have tension in your upper back. More on that later. So if you can find somewhere in here the lumbar region, there's your lumbar region. Let us look at the back a little bit more because they don't have it. Wait. Do we have my favorite? Yes, we have my favorite word in science on here. It's something that I would always tell people I had just been hidden. And so we're looking down here, and as we go down, you can see that we filled in a lot of the body. Oh, what's this thing here sticking out here? Named after Elvis, the pelvis. That's right. Actually, I believe the pelvis was named first. And this part of the body here, interesting fun fact, you can tell if you're looking at the skeleton of a male or a female by looking at the pelvis, because there will be a bit that's not attached at the bottom here that can spread open for childbirth. If you're looking at a male or a female, so we have our pelvis here, and then just below that we have the sacred part, the sacrum. Right? And this is actually super important when you get into like yoga and you get into different movement stuff. They're like, sit up on your sit bones. And you're like, I don't know what that means. It's your sacrum. It's your sacrum. We're trying to basically get some flexibility and movement in here. And you want to be able to sort of sit upright. You got to like get up on your sacrum. But you know what you never want to get hit in? You don't want anyone to get you in your coccyx. That's right, it nailed me right in the coccyx. That was a thing that I said over and over again as a kid because I thought it was really funny. But coccyx doesn't mean what you think, unless you think it means tailbone. And there's a little tailbone hanging there, and it is actually detached. And I had a great question the other day. Like, why do we have a tailbone if we don't need it? And I'll tell you why. Because we don't not need it. And what does that mean? Well, that means, evolutionarily speaking, we don't use a tail anymore. Animals have a tail which gives them balance. Squirrels use it to communicate, if you can believe that. It's kind of freaky. Like squirrels actually use their tail to say, I love you, or I hate you. When you see squirrels flapping their tails around, they're actually talking to each other with their tails. Squirrels can also use their tails as a coat. So when it's raining and stuff, they will literally put their tails over their head. And then the last thing, prehensile tail, right? A tail that can actually wrap around things. It's like a fifth limb. How awesome is that? Ours just sits there and does absolutely nothing. You can break it every once in a while and it hurts like heck. And also, people are born with tails every once in a while, and I do not know the amount of times that this happens, but you see how this is bent under like this? Well, imagine if I turned it around, so it kind of came out like that. So there are sometimes, and I remember telling people, they were like, oh my God, that would be so awesome. I wish I had a tail. And I'm like, yeah, but the first time you sat down, you would crush it, and it would feel like a broken bone, which is not cool. Like it would really, so they cut it off if that happens. Is my understanding. Yeah, if that happens, they'll just do a little trim. And I don't know if they tell you. Like, do they say, hey, you had a tail when you were born? Like, does anyone know? I don't know. Answer in the comments below. So the last one on this side, coccyx. Now, there's a YouTuber who's super famous that I don't feel like I should probably, is he a YouTuber? Is he a guy? Is he like a TikToker? Is he an Instagrammer? Are they different? Are they the same? I'm pointing at this person's name, and his name is not exactly this, but it's like this, and I think he has that name because of like angular bone structure is supposed to get your looks to the max. Clavicle. So Clavicular named himself after this bone in our body. I don't know why. And I don't want to start a flame war with Clavicular unless it made me remarkably popular and gave me money. But other than that, I would never want to do it. Anyway, so Clavicular, boom. I hear you're a really great guy who's telling the kids out there a lot of really great things. So thanks. That was sarcasm. Okay. Now over here is a bone that is like super dope. And it's called the scapula. They should have a YouTuber named Scapular, and then he can like fight with Clavicular. Don't you think that would be awesome? Anyway, this one here I think is actually cool because it's also like really, really good for making into different tools. So my understanding from the things I've learned from elders and stuff when I've been lucky enough to work with people is the scapula of a larger animal will be big enough that you could use this, you could make like a shovel or something out of it. So a lot of tools and implements were actually made out of the scapula of larger animals like the bison. So if you think of something like huge like a bison, its scapula would be like basically the size of a shovel. So it was a really, really useful bone to be used for making different materials like different tools. And also, this is what we call our chicken wing. I've had people ask me, like, how come like mine sticks out so much and yours doesn't? And it's because I'm old and my range of motion is garbage. So that's on me. I'm working on some Pilates. We'll see how that works out. So we've got our scapula. I do think clavicular and scapular could definitely, you know, they could be a part, they could be like a crime fighting team or something. Or like they're not fighting crime, they're, I don't know, they're fighting ugliness and who knows. Okay, so we've got a sternum. And this bone here is the sternum. And the thing about your sternum, let's look very carefully at this. Your sternum is actually attached by cartilage. So your ribs don't go all the way to your sternum. Now this person had something happen that might have made them die. Hey Gareth, how'd you die? Hey Gareth, why do I think you're British? Because Gareth, it just feels like a British name. But poor Gareth's sternum is broken. Boom, somebody gave him the old sternum punch. And if you punch someone right in the sternum with the exact right timing, you can stop their heart, or whether that's true or not, I don't 100% know. I've always been told that. It's a good story to keep you remembering things. But yeah, so the sternum. Now that being said, a less killing thing and a more bringing alive thing that can happen is because all of this is cartilage here, if you do CPR, right, this is where you're pressing, right? You're essentially, because there's give, you're actually able to like kind of apply pressure to the heart and start the heart pumping, right? So when you're doing those compressions on the chest compressions, that's actually why they tell you to locate, and you're actually locating below the sternum, right? Like just below the sternum. I'm not sure. Anyway, this is not a CPR lesson, so you're gonna get that some other time. But you got your sternum, and anyway, you can beat the. Interesting side note, if you're doing CPR right, and for a lot, you're gonna break bones. So that's what I've always been told, is that if you do CPR, you will actually break some of these ribs in here, but it's better than the person not having a heartbeat. And let's talk a little bit about the funniest bone in the body. It's the funny bone. And it's called the funny bone for two reasons. One, its name is the humerus. So you'll find the humerus in there. And the other reason why is when you bend your elbow, there's this little string here, which is actually holding the bones together, but it's a nice analogy for the fact that you have a little string running through your elbow, which is a nerve. And if you bang your elbow on something hard, you'll hit that nerve and your whole arm will tingle. Because when you hit a nerve really hard, that's how your body responds. You get that sort of tingling, you've overloaded the nerve. And that's when you say you've hit your funny bone. Now, radius and ulna, okay? These are these bones in here. And the way I always remember it is you've got one that stays in place, the lower one, and one that turns around the other one. Now radius, radiate, to spin or to turn, right? So this one spins and turns around this one. This is the radius, and this is the other one, the ulna. So if you've ever heard of somebody having a radial fracture, it does not mean they've hurt the radius. It means they've twisted the bone, and that's how it broke. So now getting down into the wrist. If you look at the wrist, if you look at the hand, you look at all these. So your hand is actually like here, right? Just to map this back onto the body. Your wrist is up here. So you have all these little delicate bones that allow for articulation through the wrist. And then you have, so these are called the carpals, metacarpals. Am I right on that? Yeah, and they have little tubes that surround them. Sometimes if you overuse your hands, like I don't know, on a keyboard, tappity, tappity, tap, tap, you're gonna get inflammation of the tunnels surrounding the carpals, and you call that carpal tunnel syndrome. And that's a pretty common kind of form of tendinitis that people get. Little side note, tendons attach muscles to bones. Ligaments attach bones to each other. None of them are shown here because we don't see any muscles. When rollerblades came out, it was awesome. They're really fun. It's like you're skating on land. But when you fall, it hurts, and you stick your hands out. And I remember doctors, when rollerblades first came out, they were seeing so many of these fractures where people would hit the ground and all these little bones in here would shatter, and that's really hard to fix. So why am I telling you this? Wear wrist guards if you're rollerblading, skateboard, especially rollerblading, because that just, if you hit a rock or something, you'll go straight forward and smash your wrists, maybe break your forearm. Wrist guards are going to really help you with that. Also knee pads, so you slide on the knees a little bit as well. So there we got all the bones in the arm. We're already down here. We've got this one here. I've always got a story, right? This one here is the femur. It's the biggest bone in the body. It's the toughest bone in the body. It also has an artery that runs along it, and I'm not sure if the site of attachment is on the back here, but it looks like it'd be a good spot for it. And so what does that mean? If you have an artery, which is a blood vessel that's coming directly from the heart, has a huge volume of blood pumping through it, what does it mean if your artery is attached to the bone? Well, it means that if the bone breaks, then the artery has a very good chance of shattering as well. So it's often sort of known that this is the one bone that if you break it, you can die from internal bleeding. Every other bone, it just hurts a lot. But this one, if you break it, you could die. And I remember playing soccer, and I was a goalie, and the goalie at the other end of the field broke his femur, and I actually heard it. I didn't associate it with like the actual thing that I'd seen, which was this really, really violent collision between the goalie and a guy who was coming in, like a striker was coming in to get the ball. The goalie slid to kick it away, and the striker kicked the leg of the goalie as hard as he could, not on purpose. It was definitely an accident, but I didn't associate all of what I'd seen with this incredibly loud gunshot that I'd heard. But that's what the sound was. This person's femur shattering. Fortunately, he got immediate medical attention, but it was a really, really scary injury. This here, kneecap. And it's also known as the patella. Shake your head violently if I'm wrong. I got a second check guy over there. And now the patella, I always have a story and something about it, but I kind of feel like I don't really know why the patella exists other than to just protect the stuff underneath here. Like I feel like it's just it's a knee ligament guard. Oh, these are all the things if you're a sports guy. MCL, ACL, they're the cruciate ligaments, the medial, the anterior. They're basically the things that attach your knee bone together. These are the things that often get ripped apart in different sports, and that's when you have knee surgery. So if you hear that somebody tore their ACL, that's a knee injury, okay? And a lot of knee injuries in sports. Interesting fact, the sport that causes the most knee injuries is also the sport that causes the most concussions, and you might not guess what it is. Okay, everyone shout at the screen, what do you think it is? Wrong, it's soccer. And not football, soccer. Well, it's also known as football outside of where I live. That sport, in part because a lot more people play it, but also there's a lot of starting and stopping and twists and also heading the ball. Heading the ball gives a lot of concussions as well. Okay, we've got our patella. We have tibia, fibula. Now, this is where I always forget which is which. I don't have a nice system like I do with the radius and the ulna. The fibula is the bigger one, and the tibia is the smaller one. Here. Fibia, tibia. These two bones in the shin.
The bigger one's tibia.
Tibia, fibula. Thank you. Bigger one's tibia. Oh! Like Tiberius Kirk is the bigger of the two. Tibia, bigger. Fibia, smaller. Okay, and finally, we're almost done, and I thank you so much. If you've made it this far to the end, please be sure to like and subscribe, or I'll track you down. I won't track you down, I'm not gonna do that, but maybe I'll cut that out. Maybe I won't, maybe I'll keep it in, just to keep it real. And we're now down to the feet. And you know what I'm gonna do? I'm actually gonna probably in this video show you an x-ray of an elephant's foot. Because it's absolutely freaky to realize that inside this big, looks like a tree trunk, there's actually all the bones of your feet are in there. And the heel has a whole bunch of fat underneath it to pad the weight of an elephant. So the shape of it is different, but it's like a heel bone. And we are looking at our tarsals, our metatarsals, our toes, tarsals, metatarsals. On screen. Now here's what I'd like you to do. Fill out this sheet on your own, print it off first, then fill it out on your own. And by physically filling it out, you're going to learn it better than if you just watch me. So I know that we don't always love worksheets, but I love this one. Hey, let's learn all about the human skeleton. Are we good? All right. Peace out.